Okay, we're back. This is Excel Module 3, Video 3, and I'm going to try to be able to finish up here in this last video, but we may have to go into a fourth video for this module. We're going to start with B25, and in cell B25, we're going to use the sum function to calculate the total amount of agent time on the phone in column K. And then I want to divide that number by 60. So I'm going to start with equals sum, and I want to sum up everything in column K. So very similar to what we did above, where you can just type the letter K and it gets the entire column. Then I have to close that parenthesis and divide by 60 and hit enter. I want to show you another way to show decimal places. So if you click on that box, B25, go to the Home tab. In the Numbers group, you have an increase and decrease decimal button. Go ahead and hit the decrease decimal button until it gets to a whole number. Now that wasn't the round function. That doesn't round it up to the nearest whole number, because if it were to round it up, it would actually round it up to 544, but it just rounds it. It just removes the decimal places and keeps it as a whole number. So you can do that as well. If you're not looking to round the number, you're just looking to reduce the amount of decimal places that are visible. Now we're going to go to B26, and we're going to divide the value in B25. So I'm going to start with an equal sign, and I'm going to click on B25 and then divide. And I'm going to divide that by B5. So I'm going to scroll up to the top and click on B5 and then hit enter. And then I want to reduce the amount of decimal places to that to the 10th place. So I'm just going to have one decimal place visible. Now we're going to B27, and we want to determine the whole time failure rate by using the sum function to total the values in column I, and then dividing that sum total by B6. So I'm going to start with equals. I'm going to start typing the word sum. Again, I find this a little bit easier to do it this way than to clicking on the insert function button. But if you would rather click on the insert function button or use the auto sum command that's listed up here on the Home tab, again, there's about 5 ways to do every command and task in Microsoft. So if you know a different way to do it that works better for you, that's probably fine. I just like to type it, and then I just double click. We are going to find it for column I. And then I'm going to divide it by the value in B6. I'm just going to scroll up and click on B6 and then hit enter. It's 83.09%. And let me see if it tells me a specific way to format it. The directions do not, so I'll just leave it like it is. The next step, if you're following along with the review section that I'm completing in Module 3 for Excel, it's on page 52 and 53. It's at the end of the chapter. If you're following along, step 7 has us do some formatting. So we're going to apply like the input cell style, the calculation cell style, and then the output cell style to some different ranges of cells. And it tells you in the directions which range of cells to highlight and then what cell style to add. I'm going to skip that step because it takes a little while, and we worked on cell styles in the other Excel modules, but the cell styles are, the command is on the Home tab. If you just click the down arrow, it gives you lots of different options, and everything that asks you to do can be found in that drop down. All right, so we're finished with this sheet. Click on the staffing calculator sheet, and you will see that a lot of the information is given to you here in the staffing calculator worksheet. There's not a whole lot that we have to do. There is one function that I'm going to do with you. It's called the goal seek. And what the goal seek analysis allows you to do is it allows you to kind of manipulate numbers and see what would happen if you changed a specific number. It's called a what if analysis. And what I want you to do is I want you to click on B23 and click on the Data tab. And then over to the right, you'll see where it says What If Analysis. Click the drop-down arrow next to What If Analysis and select Goal Seek. So you can set a goal number. In this case, what we're going to do is we want to set our goal number of employees to 92. So in cell B26, the number of agents that are on the staff, like if we have 92 agents on our staff, how many of those agents would we need on call to operate our call center? So you can tweak and manipulate the numbers to get different results, to see like if I had 92 employees hired, which is the number that it's asking us to use in the book, how many agents would I need on call? If I had 100 agents on call center staff, how many agents would I need to operate the call, and what percentage is that, and how could I decrease the number of agents that I need on call, and just lots of different ways that you can analyze data. What this is asking us to do for this goal seek is to set a cell. So our set cell is going to actually be B26. So I'm just going to click on it, and I want to set the value in B26 to 92 because that's what the book tells me to do. So if I set the value in B26 to 92 agents, then I want to change cell B23 to figure out how many agents I actually will need on call. So go ahead and click on B23 and say OK. And you will see it will calculate for you that you will need 60 agents on call to operate efficiently if you have 92 employees on staff. And like I said, you can change these numbers up and then run another what if goal seek analysis to see how different numbers give you different results. Okay, now I want you to click on the claims conclusion tab. And we're going to kind of finish this up here. So we have to input some numbers, and it just gives us the numbers to input. A lot of the numbers that we're going to input here in these orange boxes come from the Claims Center log sheet or the staffing calculator sheet. I went ahead and wrote down these numbers so you don't have to click back and forth between the tabs to get them. So in cell B5 where it says customer calls, the number is 128.3. And again, I'm just saving us a little bit of time here on the video, but typically you would get this number from cell B7 on the Claim Center log worksheet. That's what the directions tell you to do. Just an FYI there. In B6, you are going to type in 60. And again, I got that number from the staffing calculator worksheet. In cell B7, we're going to enter the number 20 because that's what it tells us to enter as the hold time in seconds. That's the desired hold time in seconds for the company. That number was just given to us. And then in B8, you are going to enter 26. All right, so again, these numbers are just given to you, and the book specifically told us just to input those numbers. So now we are up to B9. And in B9, what I'm going to have you do is you are going to divide the value in cell B8 by 60 to calculate the expected call duration in hours. So I'm going to go ahead and click equal sign, click on B8, divide it by 60. Hit enter, and that will give you the call duration expected in hours. So 0.43 hours is like, 43 minutes basically of an hour. 0.43 minutes of 1 hour is kind of how you would read that. Now we're going to go down to B12, and we're going to look at the workload per hour. And the formula for that is multiplying the value in B5 by the value in B9. So I'm just going to click equal sign, click B5, multiply by B9 and hit enter. And then we're going to look at B13. Notice that the table populated. So this cell is linked to this table right here. So once we entered the formula into this cell and hit enter, it went ahead and populated the data in our tables. The table is the Claim Center lookup table, and you can kind of just browse through it and see what information is displayed in the table. It's how many agents there are, what the hold probability is for each customer, the expected hold time, and then the failure rate. So what we're going to look at now in B13 is the agents occupied with calls at any given time. So to do this, we're going to divide cell B12 by cell B6. I'm going to start equal sign. I'm going to click B12. I'm going to click divide, and then I'm going to click on B6 and hit enter. 92.66% of agents are occupied with calls at any given time. So now that we have that calculated, we're going to go down to B16. And in cell B16, we are going to use the final function that I'm going to teach you about for this Excel module, and it's called the lookup function. Specifically, we're going to search for the VLOOKUP. Value lookup is what that stands for. And the reason that you would use a lookup function, lots of different reasons, but in this case, what we need to do is we need to find a value in this table over to the right. So I need to find the value for caller agent number 60. And I need to know what the hold probability is, the expected hold time, and the failure rate. Pretty simple, right? Because this table isn't very big, and I can just kind of scroll to caller number 60 and look across to find the data that I want. But I want this data to be linked to this box. And if I don't use a formula and I just type in whatever percentage I'm looking for, and I update this table later, it won't automatically update the support projections in this box. But if you use a formula, then they're a function, they're linked together. So if I update the table, then the function in this box will also update. Another reason that you use the lookup function instead of just typing in the number by just eyeing it at the table is because think of tables like tax tables or shipping rates, tax rates, things like that that have hundreds of entries. It's much harder to look up those values in a table when there's hundreds or thousands of entries. So you use what's called the lookup function to look up values in the table. It's actually pretty simple. So here's what we're going to do. In B16, use the VLOOKUP function with cell B6 as the lookup value. So B6 is our lookup value. It's 60 agents is the value that we're using to look up in our table. And then you have to type in the range of the table so that when it looks it up, it knows which range of cells to look at to find the data. So you put in the range of cells that you want the VLOOKUP function to use, and then you also put the column number from the data that you want it to return. So if you're looking for the hold probability, then you would put 2 because that's the second column in the table. If you were looking for the expected hold in seconds, you would put 3 because that's the third column in the table. So you have to tell it which column in the table you want to pull the information from, and then you type false in the last box here, and I'll show you what this means because that means it will only give you an exact match. So if you look here, let's go to insert function and search for VLOOKUP, and then double click it to load the dialog box. And here's the box that's going to open with the information that we need to put in. So our lookup value, and all of the information is given to you in the problem as well, but our lookup value is B6. So you can just type that in. And then the table array, that's the range of cells that the table falls in. So we want to look in E5 through H32. And I want to pull from column 2. And then in the range lookup, just type the word false. And you're always going to type the word false because that's going to give you an exact match. And then you can say OK, and you will see that 45.60% pops in to B16. And if you look here, 60, the hold probability is 45.60. So yes, I could have just eyed it and typed in the percentage because it's pretty easy to find. But now if I update this value later, it will update my formula here. Also, if you have tables with thousands and thousands of entries, you can see how that would be important, right? To be able to use a VLOOKUP, it's quicker than having to scroll through tons of entries to find the value that you want to find. We're going to do the same thing, a VLOOKUP for this, but instead we're going to pull from column 3 instead of column 2. So all of the other information is going to be the same, but instead of in the box where I typed 2, I'm going to type a 3. So I'm going to click here, B6. The table array is E5 through H32. Column is 3 this time instead of 2, and the value is false. And then you can just say OK. Same thing, it's just pulling from the third column. And then this one, the B18, you're going to pull from the fourth column. So it's the same VLOOKUP function, but instead of typing a 3, you're going to type a 4 in the column index box. Everything else stays the same. I'm going to skip that one and to save a little time and go down to B19. Last one, B16, B17. Oh, B18, we're going to divide. I'm so sorry. B18, we're going to actually divide B17 by 60. So I'm going to go ahead and click on B17, divide it by 60. There's that. And then in B19 is a VLOOKUP function that's going to pull from the fourth column. So that's where that last one goes. Okay, so after you have that last number, the VLOOKUP, pull from the fourth column, all of the other information in your VLOOKUP dialog box should be the same as the other two that we did. The only difference is changing it to column 4. And then the last step kind of tells you just to look at the data and draw some conclusions. You can just write a sentence or two about what you see here, expected hold times, the percentage of agents that are occupied with calls. Basically, it just says, will there be enough agents sufficient to meet the demands of the call center? I think there will be, right? Because if 92.6% of our agents are in use, that's not 100%. We could maybe even up that number a little bit to save money or maximize our profits. But at least we're not on the other side where more than 100% of our agents are needed to manage the amount of calls that we have in our call center. Okay, so that information concludes Excel Module 3. Go ahead and save this workbook so that way you have it and you can use it as a reference when you're working through your projects and your exams. If you're looking for how you typed in an if statement or how do I do VLOOKUP, you can go back and look at the VLOOKUPs that we did together, and hopefully that'll help you jog your memory on how to do it on your projects and exams. All right, thank you. Bye-bye.